Sir Chandrasekhar sir, we welcome you. Now I request
Thank
Sweta,
you.
I will share the screen, then you start
Sir.
introducing the speaker to the audience, please. Right?
Oh, okay, sir.
I need to wait for you to allow me to share the screen, no? As on
I'll
my
do it.
share. Right.
Right,
No
right, sir. I'll do it, sir. Just 1 minute, sir. I am first will introduce the speaker, then.
Okay.
We'll do it.
No.
Sweta, please go ahead.
Okay, sir.
Please.
Thank you, sir. I feel honored to invite Dr. U. Chandrasekhar, sir, Program Director at Wipro 3D, Speaker of Session 11. And sir will deliver a lecture on qualification of metal additive manufacturing components for strategic and core sectors. Dr. U. Chandrasekhar, sir, is a researcher and an academician with extensive insights into aerogas turbine engines and additive manufacturing. After his education in NIT Surathkal and IIT Madras, he worked in DRDO in various capacities, rising to the rank of Additional Director GTRE in 2010. During his stint at DRDO, he led 2 national projects in the areas of rapid prototyping and thin film sensors as the project director. He set up India's first ever additive manufacturing laboratory at GTRE in 1997 and carried out several projects related to rapid prototyping of diverse aero and defense systems. For his contributions in the field of additive manufacturing, he received a commendation medal from the Ministry of Defense. He received a gold medal from Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam for his academic performance at IIT Madras. Currently, Sir is the program director in Wipro 3D with overall focus on competency building and enterprise adoption of metal additive manufacturing. Sir is the chief mentor for 2 startups in 3D printing in a DST-supported IEDC. He serves on the National Board of Accreditation for promoting outcome-based education among the higher education institutions. I welcome you, sir, for your valuable presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, I'll give the sharing to you, sir.
Thank you.
Right. Now you got the option, sir. It starts.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah. Now you can share this. You can start your presentation.
Yeah. Sure. Just waiting for the screen.
Yes, yes.
Screen is
We are able to see the screen, sir. We are able to see this. We are able to see the screen, sir. Sir, somewhat voice is not clear, sir. Please, sir, voice is lagging, sir. Somewhat. It's not clear, sir. Some disturbance is there. No, sir. It's not clear, sir. Not, sir.
Is it okay?
No, no. Now it is audible, sir. Now it is audible, sir. So now it is audible, sir. Now it is audible, sir. Please continue, sir. Sir, it is audible. Sir, now,
Right. Okay.
sir, it is now breaking again. The voice is again breaking, sir. Voice is again breaking.
Checking, is it?
We are getting some kind of lag.
Is it? Even now?
Yeah, sir. Now also it is somewhat. Now it is okay, sir. Now you can proceed, sir.
Okay. It is
Sir,
So,
ரிமைண்ட் தான் அமௌண்ட் ரெண்ட் பிளஸ் இதெல்லாம் வந்து பேசுறேன் யாருக்கு ஓ பைக்லியா
Sir, that again voice is not clear, sir. Again voice is not clear.
சரி சரி சரிங்க ஓகே ஓகே
Sir, if you can remove that earphone directly, you can speak. Let us see.
ஓ
Directly you speak, sir.
சரி 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 சார் நோ ப்ராப்ளம் நோ ப்ராப்ளம் தேங்க்யூ டேக் கேர் நோ ப்ராப்ளம் டேக் கேர்
Sir,
நோ ப்ராப்ளம்
was it?
no, sir. Still voice is not clear. Sir, one thing, sir. Otherwise, you switch off your video and then speak, sir. There is some internet. Please, sir. Proceed, sir. No, now it is okay, sir. Now it's okay. Now it is okay, sir. Please. No, proceed. Sir.
1.5 hours for 2 days. Aspects connected. And parts that we have done.
Sir, again, same problem is coming, sir. Sir, again, same problem coming. You can again reconnect, sir. Again, go and reconnect.
Yeah.
No, it is better, sir. No, it's good.
Okay.
Sir,
Thanks a lot. Sorry about the
better.
technical hit. Yeah.
No issues.
So,
Please.
sorry.
Please.
Yeah. Sir, it was generally my background and my interest in. I've been connected with 3D printing for 2.5 decades now, and during long stay at Evo, I had an opportunity of working on various 3D printing or additive manufacturing technologies for complex aeronautical systems, missile systems, combat aircraft, and also unmanned systems. And what you see on the right side of the slide are some of the parts that
PPT
I
is not
happen
visible.
to make.
Sir, PPT is not visible, sir. PPT is not visible.
Not visible.
Okay.
Okay.
Now it is visible, sir. Now it is visible. Now it is visible. Continue, sir, please.
Yeah.
Continue, sir.
Presentation. Into this. I want to spend some time on describing the 3D printed or decommissioning parts are being used in there are material process related aspects varying on the quality, but many of them direct automotive and energy systems, and the today interesting evaluation vis-a-vis the intended use. Then I am also looking description of the opportunities that are available for academia today and the research and consultancy projects that are connected with that.
Sir, there is some audio problem is there, sir. Sir, still audio problem is there. You can just switch off the video, sir. Otherwise, we'll see. Audio is still, it's staggering, sir. Audio is still staggering, not continuous. So you can just switch off your camera, sir. We'll see it is what.
Okay.
Internet. No, continue, sir.
Oh, 1 second. I'm trying to stop.
Now it is clear, sir. Now it is clear, sir. Okay, sir. No issue. Please continue, sir. Video, previously it has stopped. Again, it has got switched on, sir. Video.
Close my video because I think there is one method. Video. Start of the presentation.
Now it's clear, sir.
When technology came into the forefront in the industry, most of the initial sets of applications were largely confined to design visualization and assembly integration. I'm so happy that Professor Shivaramakrishna and his team from Usmania University have chosen to keep this topic on integrated vision involving 3D printing and synergistic applications connected with the design optimization. This is what is happening. So what I'm showing in this case is the accessory drive gearbox housing that I made for combat aircraft applications way back in 91 or 92. And I kept iterating many. The wall is so fine. Lot is much using stereolithography basically to make sure whether this particular design is manufacturable. So when we gave this part to our foundry technician who is located in HAL Koraput, immediately gave a feedback saying that molten material will not be able to flow. So we had to tweak the design in such a way that we can manufacture first experiences of retweaking the design or design for manufacturing as known using printing. Then came a phase where we started looking at usage of 3D printed parts for assembly integration. What you see in this case is a Canon launched missile. The diameter of this particular thing is just about 80 mm. And you can see the missile, which is actually launched from the cannon of a battle tank, has got control and navigation systems, has got a seeker in the front. Most importantly, there is a chamber wherein we keep the explosive material or high energy material. So what did we do in this case is we made all the parts which are 1:1 replicas and conducted assembly integration trials in such a way that we'll be able to maximize the place which is meant for packaging of high energy material. So this was like an assembly integration and packaging efforts. And one of the efforts that I did in year 2005 was creation of a replica of an entire gas turbine engine with nearly 2000 parts. You can see here parts corresponding to fan, compressor, combustor, turbine, nozzle guide vane, exhaust, gearboxes, LRUs, oil tank. So we made an assembly with all these parts with an idea of creating a replica of the actual aero gas turbine engine. And this was more like an educational purpose. So what is the common denominator of these three applications is the 3D printed parts are not getting used in the real world situations where the operational loads are significant. So they were more meant for visualization efforts where the max stress is way below the ultimate tensile strength of the part. Many of you would know the ultimate tensile strength of ABS is just about 50 megapascal and the elastic modulus is about 2 GPa. So since we are making all these parts out of plastic materials, photopolymers, but the max stress is way below the ultimate tensile strength divided by the factor of safety, you're not really worried about the part prematurely failing. So you are not really worried about certification of the part for intended use or proving out the part for intended use. Then came a phase, I'm picking up an example once again from early 2001 to 2005, where the 3D printed parts were used for making the castings. So the tooling was made using 3D printed parts. What you see in this case is the casting of a large automotive housing. Maybe the dimension is just about 800 mm. And this part was made using an FDM pattern. You can see it's made in a modular way, assembled, and afterwards used as a master pattern for sand casting. And even in this case, when you are ramming sand into the core box, the load which is experienced by the part is way below the permissible stress. So we are not really worried. There is nothing like a significant amount of effort in terms of proving the part. So this is one more application of 3D printing for visualization, for an application which is way beyond the visualization, but it's used for indirect purpose. That is called rapid tooling purpose. What is the end use application? This happens to be one of my first end use applications of 3D printed part. My research scholar at the time developed a flapping mechanism. What you see in this case is a flapping mechanism. Fundamentally, what does it do? It converts the rotary motion which is provided by the motor into the up and down motion of the wings. So if you're able to maintain this flapping frequency at about 18 to 20 hertz, the ornithopter or the mechanical bird will be able to generate the necessary lift as well as thrust by which it can become airborne and it can move around. I think some of you who have seen the famous Hindi movie Yuri, I think in 2018 it was released. You might have seen the applications of ornithopters for strategic context with reference to surveillance and picking up the imagery and passing on to the ground station. In this case, if you see the gear train has been made using 3D printed parts. Tremendous amount of time compression compared to the conventional injection molding. The gear assembly could be made in less than 1 week's time with the necessary tolerance. And most importantly, the weight of this particular assembly was less than 4 milligrams. The overall ornithopter itself was about 12 to 14 grams. And we were able to fly this ornithopter for about 5 minutes with a micro camera embedded into the system. So in this case, the gear wheels were indeed subjected to the loads which are incidental to the operation, but still the max stress near the fillet as well as the contact stress on the involute profile are so very low that we are not really worried about the part prematurely failing in the 5-minute mission. So this is one of the end use applications of additive manufacturing, but the max stress in this case is still way below the permissible stress. What has happened in the recent times is something different. What has happened is due to the widespread acceptance of technologies like laser powder bed fusion, which is also known as SLM, and directed energy deposition, there is an increasing use of 3D printed parts for real world applications, that is end use applications or functional applications. What you see in the bottom here is an impeller, a stainless steel impeller. And what you see on the right side is a part for communication satellite made out of aluminum alloy called ALSI 10MG. One is part of the GSAT-19, it is in the orbit. Other one is on the field, connected with an oil and natural gas company. So naturally the parts have to withstand the operational vigor, which manifests in terms of pressure, temperature, corrosive environment, forces, deflections, thermal gradients, and their machine life is significantly high. For example, the part that you see in this case is called feed cluster, which is part of the GSAT-19. It has to work for nearly 10 years in an orbit, which is about 35,000 kilometers from Earth, and the temperatures can vary from -50 degrees centigrade to 150 degrees centigrade depending upon the solar flare. So what is happening in the real world is the parts the getting made out of connected with aerospace, defense, oil and gas, energy, biomedical applications, tooling applications, consumer goods applications, and the application process as such is becoming a point of convergence for different faculties of science and engineering, including design, optimization technologies, materials, laser physics, polymer chemistry, simulation, post-processing, qualification, testing, and most importantly, exploring options like personalization and embedding sensors, networks, and real world monitoring in terms of taking the predictive steps. So many fields have started contributing to the enrichment of 3D printing practices, because of which you are seeing the usage of the parts for satellites to rocket engines to impellers to biomedical implants in complex surgeries connected with orthopedics, maxillofacial, craniofacial situations. So what happens in these cases is you need to look at the materials, you need to look at the processes, you need to look at the post processes, you also need to look at the design efforts. Overall, all these processes contribute to the properties, to the performance of the part. And it is up to us to make sure that the properties and performance are commensurate with the expectations of the engineering application. Just have a look at the template of metal EM materials that are commercially available now from some of the world's best companies like Aberdual, Sandvik, EOS, Indo-MM in India itself, GE, etc. You've got wide variety of super alloys, including 718, 625, Haynes alloy, Haste alloy. DMRL Hyderabad is exploring many of these materials. I think Dr. Ramesh has spoken about it. Aluminum alloys, which are favorites for the space structures, especially ALSI 10MG, 6061, copper alloys, which are extremely important when you are interested in making the heat exchangers, when you want to enhance the heat transfer performance in a given volume, maximize the heat transfer, you are looking at coppers and copper alloys. Titaniums, which see on one side significant amount of traction with aeronautical engineers. On other side, it's also a darling for medical applications. Refractory materials like tungsten and molybdenum, tantalum, stainless steels, which are very famous in the tooling applications like 316, 17.4, 15.5, the composite materials, bimetallic materials, multi-metallic materials. Now what is happening is there is a continued thrust on the design of alloys. In the original days, the materials which are conventionally available were adapted to additive manufacturing. But in the recent times, the user groups have understood that looking at the possibilities and the potentials of additive manufacturing, there is a need to put in considerable effort in developing the materials which can have that strength, which can have endurance, which can have fatigue and creep characteristics that are on par with the expectations and the possibilities in case of additive manufacturing. So when you have this kind of materials, it's only natural that you need to look at the performance of the material under expected operation condition. I'm just quickly taking your attention to one of the projects which you have done for ISRO in the recent times. As I mentioned, GSAT-19 is the communication satellite. It has got an operational life or mission life of 10 years. And the part that you are seeing as an inset picture is called feed cluster. And what does the feed cluster, how was the feed cluster originally made? Originally, the part was made from sheet metal activities and welding activities. And the original design had 17 different parts. You can see each of them is like a horn. So there are 4 horns, 1, 2, 3 are visible in the front and 4th one is behind. Fundamentally, when it is installed in the satellite, each of the horn is corresponding to one zone of India, north, south, east, west. So needless to mention, the positional accuracy between the horns is extremely important. If the relative positioning of one of the horns corresponding to the other horn is inaccurate even by mm, the communication quality suffers in terms of hundreds of kilometers. You just imagine the satellite is beaming from a distance of 35,000 kilometers. Instead of targeting a location, let's say like Hyderabad, if it is off by even 150 kilometers, the communication quality suffers significantly. So the part in this case had a functionality connected with not only the geometry, but also assembly accuracy. Most importantly, it had to connect or perform as far as the RF performance is concerned. So I think some of you who know the basics of electronics, you know that when there are these welded joints in the conventional parts, and when there are so many connective features, there could be compromises with reference to RF quality, the signal quality. So what did we do in this case is we converted the 17 part into a monolithic part, that is a single part. And when you convert into single part without any joints, you need to make sure that it performs well, not only with reference to the mechanical features, but also with reference to the vibrational features and also with reference to RF performance. So in this specific case, the part was made by Wipro working in tandem with ISRO and SAC Ahmedabad team in about 2 months' time. But amount of testing which was done on the part to certify the part to be commensurate with the usage of a GSAT-19 satellite, it spanned over almost a year. So please understand that whenever you are making a complex part connected with using additive manufacturing, if the part has to get into the end application, the amount of effort which is required for proving out, for testing, for making sure that the part is accepted for end use, they can be significantly higher than the amount of effort which is spent on making the part on the machine. This is an important thing. So because of this particular protocol which you develop now, ISRO has started making many feed clusters for different satellites. You can see here a much bigger feed cluster with the dimensions of 800 by about 380 by 350 mm. And the philosophy is similar. Many parts are converted into monolithic part. There are interconnecting fingers. Last but not the least, all these parts successfully went through testing and certification regime, which is stipulated by the space authorities. This example I picked up intentionally because some of the participants are from Hyderabad, and I wanted to give you some kind of a directive that the efforts today in terms of certifying complex 3D printed parts are not only limited to large companies like Mahindra, Wipro, Cyient Infotech, Bharat Forge, Tata Motors, or ISRO, VSSC, DRDO. It is also percolating down to many small scale industries and startups. So in the month of August, there was a headline saying that a Hyderabad based 3D printing startup called Skyroot made first ever 100% 3D printed bipropellant liquid rocket engine injector. This is what. So Wipro collaborated with Skyroot to make this part. It's a rocket engine injector. Once again, it's made out of aluminum alloy. It's a monolithic part. So we spent a lot of time in making sure that the part is made with the strength needs that are stipulated by Skyroot. I think some of you who know the story of Skyroot, you'll be knowing that they are developing series of launch vehicles which are known as Vikram 1, 2, 3, named after famous space scientists of India, Vikram Sarabhai. And fundamentally, they are going to cater to the needs of the launch of small satellites. So it is going to be one of the pioneering efforts. So outside of ISRO, wherein a private startup is providing the launch support to the launch of small satellites with the vehicles that have been displayed here. So you can see here, in this case, the mass of the part has been reduced by 50%. The number of parts is reduced by almost 80%. And if you are thinking of using this part in a complex rocket engine, once again, the amount of effort which is required to gain confidence in performance of part with reference to the mechanical conditions, with reference to dynamics associated with the launch, and with reference to the endurance that are indicated is going to be significant. That's exactly what is happening now. The Skyroot team is in the process of proving out and testing and getting the necessary certification for this part. So I want to say that we are only talking about ISO ASTM 52900-2015 based categorization of 7 AM processes. So you are talking about powder bed processes wherein laser powder bed fusion is one of the well-established technology. Alongside of that, you have got electron beam melting. Then you have got directed energy deposition techniques. Some use powders, others use the wires, and the source of energy could be an arc or a laser or electron beam. And alongside of this, there is also emergence of new technologies which are like friction stir additive melt process, the cold spray process, which is completely devoid of the usage of lasers, and ultrasonic processes. In all these things, if you see, the interaction between the energy source and powder differs from one to other. In some cases, the energy source is absent. For example, if you make use of the metal binder jetting, there is no energy source at all. You are actually depositing binder. So the microstructure of the part in these cases are going to be different. The macro effects are going to be different. So when you make a part using a specific process with a specific material, specific set of process parameters, the properties that are going to be resultant are going to be function of all these variables. And hence the certification becomes a must. And you just see what has happened in the world of materials. There is a material called scalm alloy. It's a scandium reinforced aluminum magnesium alloy. And if you look at the weight of this material, the density of the material, it is almost comparable to aluminum. But if you look at the strength of this material, it's almost getting into a realm where it is comparable to titanium. So you just imagine you are getting a material which is significantly lighter than titanium and almost comparable to aluminum, but the strength wise, specific strength wise, fatigue limit wise, it is comparable to titanium. So tremendous advantages in terms of the performance. But how do you certify the part for use is you have to do a lot of room temperature, high temperature testing corresponding to tensile properties, elongation properties, fatigue properties, yield properties, to be confident that you can make use of the alloy called scalum alloy in the intended context. Now, before actually I start describing the qualification process, I want to tell you that the range of applications is continuously widening. We are making the parts for all the parts which are displayed in the slide. They are representative parts. We have made many more parts in Wipro 3D in the last 5 years, starting from orthomode transducers, impellers, the antenna systems, starting nozzles which are used for the small gas turbines, the quasi-hollow structures which are made from nickel alloys, propulsion discs made out of nickel alloys again, the application of stainless steel for sensor housings, and many parts including the nozzle guide vanes which have got extremely small wall thickness but which have the mandate of surviving a temperature of almost like 2000 Kelvin and pressures which are 15 to 20 times greater than atmospheric pressure. So all these parts have significant of functionality associated with testing. Now you see, I have picked up this particular slide from a publication of NASA. You look at the build envelope of SLM. Fundamentally, most of the build envelope is about 250 by 250 by 250 mm. But if you look at the industry grade machines like SLM higher things, you can even make the parts up to about 0.5 meter in XYZ direction using the high-end SLM systems. But look at the size of the parts which are getting made using directed energy deposition using customized SLM processes by NASA. Some of them are nearly about 2000 mm or 2 meters. So when you make parts of this humongous dimensions using photobight fusion or directed energy deposition, the kind of defects, both surface defects and subsurface defects, which happen in large size parts because of the bulk of the material, could be radically different from the small size parts like implants that you are making. So it becomes imperative that you need to make witness coupons alongside of these large parts and make sure that these parts are tested under simulated conditions before you certify them for rocket launches. So there is an emergence of an industrial feature in the recent times. Once again, I picked up this news item from June 2020, publication of AM Chronicle. The world famous automotive engineering company called BMW has set up an additive manufacturing campus near Munich. And what does it contain? It has about 51 systems connected with AM of plastics and AM of metals. And they are looking at creating close to 300,000 parts in the first year of 2,000 plus designs, the spare parts for existing BMW cars, the legacy parts, bespoke vehicles, etc., etc. And all these things are getting managed by an additive manufacturing campus consisting of state-of-the-art photobight fusion systems, directed energy deposition systems, material jetting systems, and binder jetting systems. So if you look at the application profile, initially they were all make part substitution, single part, or they were tooling. Now, if you look at the current uses of AM, you are looking at making the entire system using AM. So this application that you see here, I have taken from 2019 publication of Fraunhofer. You can see a complete gas turbine engine made realized through AM. So there is a paradigm shift in the way the technologies are being used. It's not for a simple part. It's not for a simple module or a subsystem. It is for making the entire system. It means your testing and qualification should look at the system in entirety, not at the part. Now, what are the parameters that can be varied or that are controlled or non-controlled in case of laser powder bed fusion? Start with the machine. The process could be different. Look at the powder. Different powder particles could be procured depending upon the source. You could be looking at gas atomized particles or plasma atomized particles. The sphericity levels are different. The particle size distribution is level. The texture is different. The morphology is different. So when the metal powders themselves are coming from multivariate contexts, the properties are going to be different with reference to thermal performance, with reference to packing density, with reference to the mechanical properties. And look at the production. How are you orienting the part? Are they packaged very tightly? What is the kind of process window you are deploying? What is the laser energy? What is the thickness, hatch spacing, build strategy, the acceleration, deceleration phenomena connected to the movement of the beam on the surface? All these parameters, including the supports, they matter a lot. And even the input data can vary. You know, the input data can be coming from the CAD model, or maybe you have taken it from 3D scanning of the legacy part, or in some cases, the part might have undergone tremendous amount of examination with reference to introduction of the stock for post-processing. You know, you look at a part, you understand what kind of post-processing you are going to deploy, maybe short peening, maybe severe mechanical attractive technique. So depending upon what technique you are going to use in the post-processing, today design groups are introducing the stock right in the initial stage. That's what is the stock for machining. And you are always looking at the critical surfaces. What are the mating surfaces? Is there any question of leakage? And how exactly you can plug these problems right in the beginning by orienting the surfaces in a specific direction. You are looking at the planning level. And what is very important is even the quality inspection parameters are being considered right in the beginning. What kind of NDT protocols that are available to you, whether the porosity is going to be excessive, the density, flowability, the parameters that are connected with the performance, how closely you can evaluate using the microscopy technique. Should you be deploying the CT imaging at a particular time in order to get insight into the internal porosity? These are some of the considerations which are being considered right in the beginning of the process cycle. And last but not the least, many times the user groups tend to disassociate post-processing from bed fusion. The post-processing which happens after the part is made has got a tremendous bearing on the quality. And I will give some examples on how the post-processing has even affected the part in a significant manner, and how the planning needs to be done right in the beginning to make sure that the part comes out with a necessary performance template. So we at Wipro 3D have been closely, assessing, evaluating parameters right from powder level, right from design context to building the part to post-processing. And our practices are largely in conformance with ISO. I think some of you who are completely familiar with the ISO 9001 systems would know that the currently revision D has happened. For manufacturing of the part and assemblies using additive manufacturing for aerospace and industrial application, this becomes one of the de facto needs. So we have been very closely following this. And let me pick up one exciting example corresponding to a contemporary aeronautical system. I think many of you are cognizant of one of the recent initiatives of the government of India called Atmanirbharata. You are interested in developing self-reliance, especially in case of critical sectors. Those of you who have got friends in the Indian services, Army, Navy, Air Force, or maybe you are interacting with the DRDO scientists or personnel of Indian Air Force will be knowing that many systems of the tri-services are legacy systems which have been imported from countries like Israel, in the olden USSR or currently Russia, Ukraine, France, Italy, Sweden, and in many cases, UK, many cases, the OEMs are not available for supplying of the spare parts. And even if they are available, because of the opportunity cost, they put tremendous amount of profit margin into the part. You just imagine that if you have bought a car in 1990, if you are still using, there are occasions wherein you will not have a spare part. You just imagine you are maintaining something like Mirage aircraft or Sukhos combat aircraft. Tens of thousands of parts are required for maintenance, repair, upkeep of these systems. Who makes them? How dependable are the supply chains? What happens if there is a disruption to the supply chain? These are some of the things which are being addressed by the Government of India. So in recent times, we from Wipro 3D had an opportunity to work very closely with the DRDO and HAL teams for indigenizing one important component for helicopter engines, or Artus engine. This is called inner ring. In this case, the original part was made nearly about 35 years ago using some high temperature resistant steel, A286. How was it made in the original way? It was forged and machined. And we don't have drawings. So we had to start with the creation of the drawings of the part. We have got only access to used parts and looked at the properties of the material. What are the properties at the room temperature in terms of strength, elongation, reduction in area, which controls the ductility, and what are the properties at the operation temperature, hovering around 650 degrees centigrade. We understood it has got a wall thickness less than 2 mm in few locations, and the minimum feature size is about 0.5 mm. Because of the fact that it's got aerofoil, the tolerancing is very, very demanding, and the surface finish in certain locations is close to 1.6 micron RA. So with this kind of context, how exactly we employed additive manufacturing? What are the certification criteria? What are the functionalities that we consider? So right in the beginning, we understood the metallurgy of the material. And then we understood role of each of the alloying elements in this material. And then we started looking at what are the alternative chemistries that are available in 2020 through which we can produce the parts using additive manufacturing without depending on any complex tooling, so that we can meet the necessary properties. Then we considered vacuum atomized powder of A286. It conducted the property checks corresponding to the flowability, density, the incidences of oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, famously known as ONH, and powder morphology test. We did all these things in the initial stages of the powder quality. Then we developed, using systematic DOE approach, the parameters which are required for handling this material or similar materials on a powder bed fusion system. And after developing this DOE, we went into testing of the coupons, the traveler coupons, the witness coupons, conducted significant amount of mechanical property studies, including density, rupture, fatigue, microporosity, grains, orientation, and then we conducted significant amount of work on the heat treatment, solution treatment cycles, and conducted concomitant studies on the microstructure, and finally we were able to optimize the heat treatment. So why am I emphasizing all these things with reference to this particular part is, each and every parameter that I have described is a cog in the additive engineering wheel of this part. And when you talk to agencies like RCMA, DMRL, Semilac, which are responsible for airworthiness of the part, they come and check up the documentation the conformance of all these functionalities with reference to the intended application. Since some of you are from the academic environment, it's similar to your NBA and NAAC accreditation. Maybe you have conducted your teaching learning practices. Maybe you have conducted all the recording corresponding to the pedagogy, but still during the process of accreditation and assessment, the judges come or the evaluators come from different agencies, sit with you for a long amount of time, understand what is your quality, what is the traceability, what is the dependability, what is the repeatability, what is the scope for further improvement. Unless they're satisfied on all these fronts, you don't get the necessary MBA accreditation. So same thing happens in case of additive manufactured parts for aeronautical applications. Unless you maintain documentation, traceability, and conformance corresponding to each and every functionality and the stage of development, you are not assured of the product being inducted into the use. In the aerospace industry, the NADCAP, or the National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Accreditation Program, plays a major role. It is actually an association created through collaboration of the OEMs, and the PRI administers the NADCAP Special Process Accreditation Program. I introduced this particular slide with an intention because you can see the word process accreditation. When exactly the process accreditation required? I will spend one more slide on this. Process accreditation is required whenever there is a modification or change inherent to the physical, chemical, electrical, metallurgical properties of the items. You are all aware when you use metal additive manufacturing like EDM, EBM, or SLM, or DED. Incidentally, the complete microstructure of the property part undergoes a change. The physical manifestations are completely different. So it's a must that when you make use of this particular process, the accreditation from an agency like NADCAP becomes imperative. I'll give an example with which most of you can closely connect. I'm sure many students from Usmania, JNTU, and several other affiliated colleges and other universities participate, the student teams along with the faculty supervisors participate in the SAE, Baha, and Supra and electrical vehicle competition. We had the personal opportunity of working with the teams of VIT Vellore and IIT Bombay in 2018 and 19. What was the focus in the study was a component called steering knuckle or an upright. What does this component do? It contains the wheel hub. It's also connected to the suspension components using these wishbones, and the braking loads are transferred to that. Fundamentally, it is part of the unsprung mass of the vehicle, and needless to mention, it's a great contributor to the dynamics of the part. If you are able to actually cut down the weight of this particular part called steering knuckle, it actually contributes tremendously to the maneuverability of the vehicle, due to which you can reduce the lap time, which is most important for the student teams because they want to win the competition by completing the lap in the shortest possible time. So when you are doing this optimization, you need to account for strength, you need to account for the stiffness criteria and vibration criteria. So you can see the original configuration and you can see the final configuration, which has been realized by topology optimization, stress analysis, qualification, testing, and final induction into the vehicle. I picked up this example because of the fact that entire work, start to end, was completed in about 4 months' time by a team which is involved in the Baha Supra competitions. So you can see here, the original part was made out of 7075. And you can look at the dimensions of the part. They are about 190 mm to 120 by 37. So it holds the hub and it allows actually rotation of the wheel, and the forces from the tire contact patch are transmitted to the upright through suspension links. And even the brake calipers are mounted on the upright. If you look at the exploded assembly, then you will understand what are all the parts that are connected with that, and you will also understand what is the important role of the upright in the overall wheel assembly. You can look at the wheel assembly next time with a careful eye. You'll be able to understand how exactly this particular part is responsible for rotation of the wheel and transmission of the tire loads and mounting of the brake caliper, so on and so forth. So what did the team do under our mentoring? They considered all the forces and they went through the layout. They considered the suspension geometry. They considered the tire data and fundamentally the reaction forces because of the tie rods, because of the tire reaction and braking. They are all considered. The topology optimization, very similar to what Balaji Tirupati mentioned in the preceding talk, involves defining the design space, non-design space. And when you make a part using topology optimization, the part which is resultant, the configuration which is resultant is not 100% friendly to additive manufacturing. So the part is topology optimized, no doubt about it. But if you ask me whether it can be manufactured, there could be question mark. So you need to once again employ design for additive manufacturing to render the topology optimized part useful for additive manufacturing. So you see the deflection of the final model, and we had to look at different criteria, including incidences of support structures. For example, this particular support structure will give you minimum height in the Z direction, and you see the 45-degree orientation, and you see completely vertical orientation. So the three different orientation for the spare part need to be considered in along different dimensions. So if you really see, initially the concentration was on the CAD, FEM, topology optimization, and metallurgy. Then we realized the part. Afterwards, we subjected to post-processing, and then after post-processing, it was inducted into a rig. The qualified part through rig testing, which was able to simulate the mechanical loads and assembly-related restrictions, finally went into the vehicle. And incidentally, this particular team also got some award for the creativity deployed in the design process. So having understood the power of integrating design for additive manufacturing into the product development, we conducted a series of workshops for 3 days in Wipro 3D prior to March 2020, wherein the student teams used to come to our place, spend some time understanding the design tools. Afterwards, the additive manufacturing build process. Then the students and faculty were given orientation to the building of the part, post-processing of the part, and finally, the configuration was developed in such a way that they are able to understand the constraints corresponding to the performance as well as the constraints corresponding to the additive manufacturing. So it gave us tremendously encouraging results in making multiple teams of students and faculty members eminently capable of taking advantage of optimization tools and additive manufacturing tools for realization of the complex parts. So please understand that no organization in the world will start using the additive manufactured part for extremely critical applications right in the beginning. To start with, they look at the category 0 parts. What do you mean by category 0 part is the qualification and certification demands are not very imposing here. And even if the part were to fail because of certain deficiency in the material or post-processing or processing, there will not be catastrophe. So the system is tolerant of the failure of the component because of the fact that the part happens to be in the secondary load path or tertiary load path. Slowly, after gaining some confidence, they go to higher category part. What do you mean by category 2 or 3? If the part fails, there could be serious. Sir, somebody is talking. Can you kindly mute?
Home loan typically 8.5%.
Yeah, I think one Mr. People are
మీరు
talking.
వాకింగ్ చేసేటప్పుడు పక్క వాళ్ళ కవర్లు లోకాభ రామాయణం ఏదో పనికిరాని సోది కొట్టుకుంటూ వెళ్ళారనుకోండి.
Dr. Syed Altaf Hussain is continuously talking, please. And what do you mean by higher category? It refers to. Yeah, I request participants to mute if they are talking. Yeah. And Sarabjit Singh, Mr. Sarabjit Singh, kindly mute.
हमने पोर्टल पे इसके लिए फिल तो
Hello. Sir, there is a lot of background noise, sir. I think one Mr. Sarabjit Singh Sidhu is talking continuously. The applications are limited to only non-critical parts. After gaining the confidence, it will go up the ladder towards very critical part. So most of the applications in the real world now are in the category 4 and 5, wherein extensive testing is being done to make sure that the parts can provide the performance. After they become confident of this aspect, they are now making a quantum leap into a situation where they are re-engineering the part to take advantage of additive manufacturing. This is what is called design for additive manufacturing. Design for additive manufacturing is not tweaking the fillet radius, wall thickness, orientation, and support generation to make the part on system. That is one part of the story. Other part of the story is, you know that additive manufacturing is capable of part consolidation. Additive manufacturing is capable of providing complex geometries without the excessive dependence on the tooling and fixturing. How exactly advantage of the process in such a way that you can re-engineer the part is called design for additive manufacturing. That is also happening in some context. One of the greatest contexts which I have come across is a case study submitted by reported by a French automotive company called Bugatti. Bugatti was making a 8-piston brake caliper, and the original component was made out of aluminum alloy, and the weight of this particular component is about 2.9 kg. Through the substitution of the material with a titanium 64 and through a process of monolithizing, the team from Bugatti was able to cut down the weight by 40%, and the entire assembly which you are seeing here, which has got a longest linear dimension of about 41 centimeters, was made using powder-bed fusion in just about 45 hours. And if you see here, in this case, the testing is directly done on the part, simulating the braking conditions that are associated with the original vehicle, wherein the speeds are simulated, disc temperatures are simulated, and the brake assembly that you see here, the caliper that you see here, undergoes similar amount of mechanical and thermal demands that are experienced by the conventionally manufactured part. So because of this particular testing for certain number of hours of time and a certain number of cycles, Bugatti was able to successfully look at the 3D printed brake caliper with a different material, with a different manufacturing approach as a substitute for the conventional forged and machined part. So what was the properties they tested? As you might have seen, they tested under simulated loading condition, of course, various vehicle speeds, the acceleration, deceleration, and simulation of the disc temperature. And needless to mention, post-testing, the parts were subjected to microscopy. The part was subjected for incidences of cracks, and importantly, the part was also assessed and certified for retaining the integrity through the design cycle or through the service life for which Bugatti has made this particular design as a final design to take the advantage of design for additive manufacturing. So several companies are taking advantages of the additive manufacturing because of the fact that through designing, you can have multiple production efficiency related contributors. In the recent times, we have seen the supply chains were disrupted from March onwards. Right from the first lockdown, we have seen the supply chains which have taken for granted, including supply of milk to supply of raw materials, they were all affected. And we have also seen in the recent times that there is so much of focus on mass customization and personalization. You want the parts to meet the needs of the customer, but at the same time, you don't want to spend too much of time in tweaking the tooling, in tweaking the base configuration. So there are any number of examples from the medical sector corresponding to mass personalized hearing aids, the orthopedic implants, mobility devices, prosthetics, which are getting made using additive manufacturing. And if you take the aeronautical sector, the types of applications are variant, multivariate, gas turbines to avionics parts, to drones, to interior parts, to replacement parts, waveguides, and even parts for marine gas application. So I understand that the technology of laser powder bed fusion might have been covered by one of the speakers. So I will not spend too much time on that. All that I want to say is it has got a laser beam, high energy source. It's scanning on the surface of the powder. Because of the movement of the laser beam, there is instantaneous melting and solidification of the particles. And typically, there are several parameters which need to be controlled when you are realizing the part. So I have shown in this case a video taken from our plant using a mobile phone corresponding to realization of a turbine disc which has got rotary root. You can see here the hatching of the interiors. Before that, you might have seen the profiling. And after a particular layer is made, you've got a recoater, which is coming into action for supply of material. And you can see continuous ejection of the metallic particles. And this pattern has to be continuously removed using an inert gas, continuous inert gas supply. And if you really see the situation which is happening at micro level of the laser beam powder particle interaction is fascinating. You got a melt pool, you got non-solidified metallic particles. In the solidification front, you got the tracks which are already solidified. And you can see with the high-speed photography, whatever pictures that have been taken from the top corresponding to the capturing of the spatter phenomena or ejection phenomena. If you look at the melt pool dynamics, it has got extremely interesting phenomena. The melt pool dynamics are controlled by surface tension related effects, then capillary forces and inertial forces. Contrary to what you think, the viscous forces and the gravitational forces are secondary in nature, please. So the melt pool dimensions are a function of the surface tension gradients and capillary actions and the inertial forces. And if you see, the defects in the part manifest at a macro level or micro level, or they can also happen at the atomic level. One of the important things that you see in case you are not able to monitor the process parameters in a way it is supposed to be done is the delamination of the build plate, of the part from the build plate. It's happening at the part level. At micro level, you can even see the cracks. They can be macro cracks or micro cracks. And if the residual stresses are significantly higher, you can even see the warpage. And there are several research opportunities which are happening in the contemporary scenario, wherein the research groups from Europe and UK have used synchrotron. I think some of you will be knowing synchrotron, wherein the electronic beams are accelerated almost to the levels of the speed of the light, and the resultant high energy beams are used for identifying even the subsurface phenomena. What happens in case of laser powder bed fusion typically is captured by this PV diagram. I think the next diagram will indicate much more things. If you put too much of energy, you start operating in the keyhole mode. When the system is operating in the keyhole mode, the keyhole will be in a state of equilibrium, considering the Laplace forces, the gravity forces which are acting on the melt pool, and the last but not the least, the forces which are happening because of the surface tension gradient. If you put very less energy, you get a lot of particles which are not fused. If you put too much of energy and too high a speed, you get a phenomena called balling. So you need to get rid of all these regions. You need to operate in a small window called operating window. And this operating window, which is a function of the laser power, scan velocity, hash spacing, layer thickness, etc., is also affected by the powder particles, the powder morphology. So if you want to really look at the qualification of the part, you need to be cognizant of the effects which happen at the part level, including delamination, macro scale, could be porosity, microstructure, and even at the atomic level, the bond lengths could be affected. And the subsurface phenomena has been studied by several people using, I think some of them have been even published in Nature Communications. And you can see the creation of voids, subsurface voids, if you are not able to take care of the necessary parameters connected with the powder. And the heat transfer in this particular melt pool, the dominant mode is not conduction phase. It's actually convection. Within convection, the Marangoni convection is more dominant rather than the convection which is associated with the gravity effects. So for you to understand all these things is a great opportunity, because once you are able to understand all these parameters, and once you are able to control the thermal gradients, once you are able to control the after effects with the confidence, then you can look it into the industrialization of the additive manufacture part. One of the applications of 2019 from a company called Beta Type, they have reported that they have made 385 parts in a single build corresponding to the heat sink of an automotive LED lamp. And through the process optimization, they were able to cut down the time from 440 hours to 34 hours. And if you were to deploy 7 missions of similar kind with this build strategy, they'll be able to make 1 million parts per year. So this is a true manifestation of the industrialization of the process. And needless to mention, in this case, after the parts are printed, if you want to remove one part from other part, it can be just removed with a simple snap kind of an action. So why did I mention that particular application is, it's very, very important for you to understand what is the cooling rate effect, what is the heat energy effect as far as structural integrity of the part is concerned. If you're able to quickly latch on to the process window of a particular process, powder, machine combination, then you will be able to realize the part with the necessary dimensional fidelity, surface quality, as well as integrity. I'm very sure Professor Sivaramakrishna might have already taken care of the powder, the importance of powder. The powder actually comes from processes like VIGA and EGA and PREP. In some cases, plasma rotating electrodes might have been deployed, and in some cases, electrode induction melting gas atomization might have been deployed. You can see here, when the same part, same titanium 64 powder is made in one case using EGA with the gas atomization. In other case, you made use of plasma rotating electrode. You can see complete absence of satellite particles. The sphericity, which is far superior, lack of subgrains and cellular structures on the large particles that you see in case of EGA. So needless to mention, the very first step in your part building has got tremendous effect on the microstructure of the part, which is likely to result from part building. So the qualification starts happening right from metal powder onwards. There are several ASTM standards corresponding to sampling of the powder, checking the density, apparent density, flow rate, particle size distribution. And this has to happen right from the powder level because there are many instances where particle sizes can vary and morphology can be completely different. And we have seen personally in our own experience that there is a powder mismatch and there is variation, the PSD levels which are completely different compared to what we have ordered. So what we generally do is start looking at quality of the powder right from the initial stage. We get from OEM, we actually test it with our own sources right here in Bangalore. And we also have got our own equipment in terms of particle size distribution, density, and microstructure, and ONH analysis. And why is it important? Because the properties connected with the tensile performance, the hardness, the creep, the fatigue, they're all dependent on your powder. And you need to maintain traceability of the powder. I have taken all the snapshots from our own storage area. You need to maintain, when you are using multiple powders, multiple containers, multiple sources, you need to give tremendous amount of attention to the traceability because 80 to 90% of the powder is reused. In a typical powder bed fusion, depending upon the geometry, you're only making use of 10 to 15% of the powder. Then remaining powder is going through powder recycling process and again getting back into the part usage. So you use ICPM approach for conveying the used powder, you sieve it, and fundamentally, if you don't take care in the reuse, there will be tremendous impact with reference to oxygen content and morphology undergoing tremendous changes, including the satellite particles which affect your surface quality. So the post-processing is also very important. I need to conclude my presentation in next about 3-4 minutes. You can see the same part which has been made through different processes manifest with the different levels of surface finish. This is one of the famous case studies from Fraunhofer Center for Additive Manufacturing, wherein they have used multiple processes, including short peening, severe mechanical attrition, micro peening, ultrasonic impact treatment, grinding, etc., and they have analyzed how the surface integrity of the part is tremendously improved or influenced by the post-processing. So I would like to now conclude my presentation. There are many case studies. I would skip all of them. What I would like to do is, this may be an interesting slide wherein the number of the witness coupons, test coupons, along with the part, you can see in all directions there are test coupons because of the fact that unless you have got test coupons which are witnessing the part building, you cannot be confident about the property of the part. So we make use of these traveler coupons or witness coupons to make sure that if somebody comes to us after a few years, we'll be getting to know whether the part has had an inherent defect or did it happen in course of time. So there are several case studies. Maybe in one of the future workshops, I'll take care of that. But I want to tell the faculty members who have assembled here, there is tremendous research opportunity corresponding to different materials, corresponding to different processes and process parameters in understanding the interrelation between process, structure, property. And depending upon this interrelation, you'll be able to understand how is the energy density impacting the microstructure, grain orientation, grain sizes, porosity. And there are several places where these things have got a direct bearing on the property. So you can see here, we have done hundreds of tests within Wipro 3D. You just concentrate for time being just on aluminum alloy. Look at the cast properties of aluminum alloy. Look at the properties that we have got with our own parts in our own test lab. So the ultimate tensile strength is far superior in case of SLM. Hardness is comparable. Yield strength is superior. Fatigue strength is comparable. So when you develop this kind of parameters and give it to the user group from ISRO, they will come to understand how exactly they can do the part substitution of forged and machined or cast and machined parts with SLM part. This is very, very important. This is one of the combustors which are developed for a drone engine. Then I just want to conclude my talk by saying that we have been collaborating with multiple agencies like BITS Pilani, IIT Bombay, IASC, ISRO, VIT Vellore, JNTU Hyderabad, on the processes, on the materials, on the applications, on the design aspects, and it has led to many, many projects. And one of the important projects which I would like to showcase and then conclude is the development of the first ever electron beam additive manufacturing system. It was a collaborative project involving IASC team from mechanical, material, computer science, and design departments, and the team of Wipro 3D. And working in collaboration, we were able to make this electron beam additive manufacturing system. It's currently installed in the Material Research Center of IASC. And the reason why we are trying to get into the machine development is we want to start looking at refractive materials which are difficult to process using powder bed fusion, can be processed using electron beams because of the fact that you can infuse tremendous amount of energy. The beams need not be moved with mirrors. They are moved using electromagnetic fields. And the entire project was supported in a significant way by the Government of India, Department of Heavy Industries. And I'll be very happy. I will share my email here in case some of you have got interest to collaborate with us on additive manufacturing applications and design related aspects. Feel free to reach up to me, and whatever is possible from my side, I'll be able to do. My email is u.chandrasekhar@wipro.com, and I would like to really thank and appreciate the effort put in by Professor Shivaramakrishna for past 2 years.
Sir, we are joined by Professor Sriram Venkatesh, sir. He is also coordinator of this program. Sir is on
Sriram Venkatesh. Hello, Professor Sriram Venkatesh. Yeah. And I think you people have done tremendous effort you have put in collecting speakers from disparate sources, from research labs, from DRDO, from industries, from startups, from academia. And I'm very sure the participants have got significant insight into the technology and its application. What I made an attempt in the last 1 hour plus is to give a very brief insight into the possibilities and potentials in making use of this technology for aerospace and other strategic sectors which are important for real world. I just want to conclude my talk by saying that in the recent times, there has been concern on the lack of interest as far as the students are concerned to take admissions into core engineering sectors like mechanical, electronics, electrical. It is up to us, the faculty members, it is up to professionals like us to tell the mechanical engineering aspirants that today mechanical engineering is just not confined to manufacturing or materials or thermodynamics or theory of machines. The practices in real world are becoming an interplay of many, many exciting technologies like IoT technologies, like data analytics, like machine learning, machine vision, machine learning, artificial intelligence for improving the quality of the parts. And because of synergistic application of all these sensors, networks, real-time monitoring, The technologies like additive manufacturing in tandem with other technologies are making the industrial enterprises to move towards Industry 4.0. So the engineers of today, if they can pick up the skills and knowledge associated with all these wonderful technologies, the future could be golden. They don't have to really forego their interest in mechanical engineering, get into computer science or information technology and do coding only because they feel that it is giving a greater career opportunity. I just want to re-emphasize that additive manufacturing as a field is a very exciting field because it can connect with the entire spectrum of Industry 4.0 in a seamless manner. We at Wipro 3D, we have witnessed this. I've also witnessed the similar phenomena in different companies like Kirloskar, MRF, Tata Motors, Bajaj, etc., L&T. I want few people to look at additive manufacturing for development for the future applications, wherein there is going to be emphasis on mass personalization and mass customization in making use of the materials in the most optimal manner. Thank you once again, and
Sir,
thanks
please
for your
switch on your video, sir. Sir, please switch
Yeah.
on your video, sir. You can
I'll
come
switch
out of the sharing mode, sir. You can come out PowerPoint sharing. You can stop, sir.
Yeah.
So that we are all visible. Venkatesh, myself, and all of us visible.
Yes, sir. I'll try doing that.
There are some questions from the audience also, sir. I'll ask the questions.
Yes, please.
Another 5 minutes, we'll close it, sir. Venkatesh
no
also will give few comments on this. You can just stop sharing the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I stopped the sharing. I stopped sharing.
Still
Still it is coming?
Yeah, still it is
Okay.
coming.
Okay, 1 second. It's taking time.
Now it's over, sir. Now you can switch on your videos.
Yes. I will. Hope the voice quality is not affected.
Not affected, sir. Now, Professor Sriram Venkatesh is online, sir. I hope you are able to see him. You are able to see him. He is in the. He is now in the controller of examination, sir. Venkatesh, you can just switch. Bring your mask down 1 minute. You can bring. Sir is. Sir is Venkatesh sir is now controller of Usman University examination, sir.
So background there is SLM machine, sir.
No. Please ask my interested efforts in
Again, your voice is
for many years. I think you are one of the earliest students of LG. Tell me that people were connected. Stop the video. Audio better. Hello.
No, it is better, sir. No, it is better.
Okay.
It is better, sir. No, it is better.
Yeah,
no,
I'll operate without video. I think it will improve this, speech quality. Professor Sriram, and very nice to see you after a long time. I think I last met you was in 2013. So nice to see your SLM facility, and real pleasure to know that your efforts in industrialization of AM are happening in such a significant manner. I think you people have guided many MTechs and PhDs, and they themselves have become faculty members in several colleges teaching AM. So my congratulations to you.
Thank you so much, sir. So after a long time meeting each other, and you have visited our SLS facility long back.
Yes.
So you came to our lab while coming from Warangal, NIT Warangal.
Yes. It was in the year 2013. Yes.
Yeah. So it was established in 2009.
Okay. Yeah.
To see, after a long time.
Yeah.
And also Dr. Shivaram Krishna selected couple speakers.
Yes.
Once I heard that you are also coming, we are actually felt that we are fortunate to have such.
Thank you, sir. Actually, it is my privilege also to connect with all of you after a long time, and your services are very important because your students, some of your students are working with us in Wipro.
So actually, after going through your presentation, you are working in the area of particularly metal 3D printers, apart from the polymers. And lastly, you said you have a MOU or MOA with premier institutions like IIT and
Correct.
JNTU. But we are also looking, sir. Actually, you are instrumental in
Yeah.
making our 3D printing center and with Wipro. So then
Yeah.
we enter into MOU. If you visit once and see the facilities available at our place, and then only we can discuss about the going forward towards the entering into MOU. And we can also conduct some training program jointly, and it is a win-win situation. We should be useful to you, and your center also useful to us, and ultimately exchange of our ideas to the society and at large. Uh, I think if you are agree, we will put forth this to the university to enter into MOU with continue, sir, Dr. Shivaram Krishna, because I'm presently controller of examinations, bit busy. Otherwise, I would have joined all the sessions without any break. But
Yeah.
I'm joining, and Dr. Shivaram Krishna is now taken over, and he is also joint director for our center. Myself is the director. That is center renamed. Earlier it was CPTIP. It is renamed as Center for Product Design, Development and Additive Manufacturing, suggested by the OU Ideal of that is a Section 4 company, in which no the RUSA, Rashtriya Uchatar Shiksha Abhiyan, is
Yes.
the initiative, second phase. Under that, we have been sanctioned almost 5.4 crores. So,
Okay.
so with 5.5 crores, we were able to add metal 3D printer, that's SLM 280, and also Ultimaker and Polyjet from TechCube, and another 3D machine, that is SLS DLP, the SLA DLP, that is from 3D systems. So three machines we added, sir. One scanner also, 3D scanner
Artex scanner.
added. That is the
Artex scanner. Yeah.
Arctec 3D imported from Luxembourg. So I think
Yeah.
you are very rich. I know that Wipro is very rich, but creating such a facility in university, you know how difficult it is, and spending 5.5 crores. And I am thankful to the government of India and Osmania University, considering our DPR to set up this center of excellence in 3D printing area. So, sir, I think whenever you come to Hyderabad or whenever we come to Bangalore, definitely we should meet each other and to exchange the ideas. And MOU should not be on paper, but MOU should be workable MOU or MOA. And whatever the orders we get, I think you are into business or not, sir? Are you into business? Are you providing?
Yeah, actually, we do a lot of projects for aerospace and defense sector. Definitely, HP system for making the parts, and Wipro's facility has been used by many groups.
Company, and you are there, and it's interesting. And
Thank you. Definitely, I thank you for joining, despite the fact that you are busy with the controller of examination duties. And depending upon your coming to Bangalore and my coming to Hyderabad, we'll look for opportunities for personal interaction and establishment of MOU and MOA, not only on the paper, but in reality. I think it will definitely happen.
Thank you for accepting our invitation to deliver the wonderful lecture, and that too
Yeah.
practical problems you have mentioned and explained to all the participants. All the participants are all assistant professor to professor levels, including research scholars. So they have really benefited, and
Yeah.
because you are giving a lot of insight to the practical aspects of the 3D printing. So once again, thank you, sir. We will
Thank you. Thank you. I will be troubling you and Professor Shivaram Krishna in the future for giving lectures in programs of similar kind when Wipro conducts. So
Sir, we both of us will join together and conduct the joint programs also, sir. Like Venkatesh said.
yeah. So I'll be coming to you with specific requests very soon, as soon as November mid. Okay.
After normalcy restored. This one.
Yeah. Sure.
That is
Sure.
asking, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Sure.
Sir, some questions are posted, sir. Venkatesh, thank you. So
Thank
some questions, sir. One question we'll answer, sir, because time is. You're all saying something. Mr. Rushikesh Russell, in case of powdered bed, why supports are needed when powder itself can support the overhanged part? That is his question.
Yeah. Extremely interesting question. See, there is a mechanical support which is being provided by the non-fused powder particles to the fused layers. But please also understand that the support has got one more important thing. Unfortunately, the textbooks do not emphasize that. You are taking away bulk of the heat from the layer which is being built and passing on to the substrate so that the thermal gradients in the part can be mitigated. So the support structure, in addition to providing the mechanical rigidity to the thin layer, it is actually creating a thermal connect between the layer which is being produced and the substrate. So please don't look at the support structures only with reference to the mechanical functioning. It has got multiple utilities, including anchoring of the new layers to the substrate. When you see the industrial machines, when you see the size of the parts that are getting made, and when you look at the thinness of the structures, then you will come to understand why the supports are non-avoidable. Okay, great question. I think Professor Shivaram Krishna, sir, if you don't mind, it is almost like 1:30. Incidentally, I have got one more assignment immediately after this.
I'll conclude, sir.
Yeah.
Any questions are there, participants? I'll give sir mail ID. You can mail, and whenever sir is free, is going to answer the questions. So because sir also got other appointment, and we are also going behind the schedule. Sir, Dr. Chandrasekhar, sir, on behalf of the organizing committee, myself and Professor Sriram Venkatesh, thank you very much for sparing your valuable time. Being in India itself, you are the first person who started working in the area of 3D printing, exploring its capabilities. From Center of Product Design Development, Additive Manufacturing Department of Mechanical Engineering, we humbly thank you very much for accepting your invitation to deliver your guest lecture in this prestigious Atal AICTE program on 3D printing and design. Hope we'll continue these things in future. We'll have more association in association with CPDM and Wipro 3D along with Department of Mechanical Engineering. In future, we'll conduct such type of programs and enlighten our audience. And with your very industrial experience, because we get speakers from TV, etc. But as a practical person who worked in different industry areas and on the state-of-the-art technologies, I thank you very much for sparing your valuable time and delivering a very insightful and exciting and very interesting lecture on what are the applications of it, and also in-depth analysis of what you do in powder bed fusion metal processes. Thank you very much, sir, for joining this session. Thank you very much. Thank you, Venkatesh, for joining and this session. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So, audience, I hope you had a very exciting lecture from Dr. Q. Chandrasekhar, sir. Balaji, thank you to you also. Are you there? Yeah. Now, I request all audience, please have a lunch and come back by 2:25. Meanwhile, all of you, please set up your laptops with all the things. We already given all the information to you. What you should have for the next section, we are going to have a hands-on practice on how to do biomedical modeling using the 3D Slicer software. It will be delivered by Manavadachari, our next speaker. And then you are going to have a slicing of STL file using Cura software. It may be, we'll be starting sharply at 2:30. Exactly, we have 1 hour time. So be ready with all your laptop with a good internet connectivity and with all the softwares installed and the DICOM file, STL file, which are mailed to you. If you have any problems, you can see our WhatsApp group. Chari is available with his phone number. try to contact him and rectify your problem before we start. Because once we start it, please, you should not say, sir, I am unable to download ICOM, I am unable to unzip. Please, all these things we have sent yesterday itself. So please try to complete that process meanwhile. And it may be extended slightly the session. Instead of closing at 4, it may go up to 4:35 because Chari is so interested to make you to learn. So some of you may be having doubts. So please try to see that all of you complete this today's exercise. 2 exercises we are doing. Then only I feel that you can leave. That is better because then only the importance of this program will be, it will be satisfied, right? So please, all of you come back by 2:25, join the session. Thank you very much for your patient listening for the past 2 sessions. I feel everyone should attend, all the 200 participants should attend this program. Thank you very much.